Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to walk through two aspects of building and listing an NFT. The first is going to be the real work, the artist work in generating the art and generating the actual NFTs. That's the images, the metadata, and Mark's going to take care of that. He's much more talented at that sort of stuff than I am. The second part is the NFT contract. So that's actually getting your NFT onto the Stacks blockchain and getting it minted. And actually, we had a great artist. You might know him if you're on Discord. Boozy. He did a couple of collections. So we're gonna get that art out there onto mainnet, and you'll all be able to mint it by the end of this talk. So
hopefully,
yeah.
If we manage to get it working.
Yep.
Right. Are we good?
Yep, we're good.
What screen? Oh wow, that
there
one.
we go.
Okay. So thank you everyone for coming to listen to me and Jamil spout through this for the next half an hour. We are not organized. We actually had 2 emails asking for our slides. And I think Jamil sent a nice email back saying we have no slides, which meant we did not prepare for this. So we decided to instead walk through the process of generating a generative NFT and also deploying that, not through any of the STXNFT or Byzantine sort of auto-deploy contracts, but actually deploying your own contract. So your NFT would be on your own contract and not at the mercy of a marketplace. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the art. We're going to walk through some of the code. You can see the URL here. That's live. Anyone can go to it and just poke around. There is a disclaimer in the README which says this code is not clean, lacks testing, and is only really usable for the most basic of NFT projects. There are a couple of reasons for this, and one of them is that as soon as you start to play with large asset files from an artist, and artists love to give you 6K PNGs that are 2 megabytes each, and realize that you need to put 12 of them together to produce one image, and all of a sudden you've got a 20 megabyte PNG and you need to produce 10,000 of them. So there's no processing or multi-threading or anything like that. It's pretty slow. So if you want to produce a high number of NFTs, it's going to take a few moments. So we've been working with, this is a hypothetical scenario. We've been working with our super awesome artist, Boozy, who some of you may know in the ecosystem is super talented, has a really colorful art style. And he's gave us a couple of files. So he's gave us some backgrounds here. Is GitHub going to load these? You can see how slow it is. So we've got some backgrounds. We have some eyes. We won't go through all of them. We'll just pick the good stuff when this loads. We have some Bitcoin eyes. And really for the artist, when you're asking an artist for some generative art, you're saying, I want all of these as transparent PNGs, all the same canvas size. So in this case, it's 2048 by 2048. And as a developer, that means you can just apply the layers on top of each other sequentially, and you don't need to worry about anything else. In the real world, this is much more difficult because there are rules. There are all kinds of crazy transformations of the art that you want to apply. So there's 50 lines of code here. If I zoom out, it might. Is that going to work? No. There's 50 lines of code that really walk through the process, and there are about 1 million ways that you can produce generative art. You could probably use every language. I use Python because my background is in data science, so I was like, hey, this is just really easy, and I can use Pill for absolutely everything. But there are libraries like Hashlips that use JavaScript, so you can use JavaScript to deploy and build that way. So we have a little bit of code here. If we walk through some of the code, what we're doing is we're really using the operating system's folder structure to determine how we build this NFT. So we only have 4 directories which relate to the 4 traits: background, bodies, eyes, and head. And we're going to do some simple sort of stuff by iterating over the files in that folder and assuming that we want to use all of these. If this were a real collection, you'd want to have things like have none for some of the classes. Maybe the background would be able to only be applied in certain situations to avoid collisions. But this is a really simple overview of how you could build that. I'm going to highlight a few things here because it's worth mentioning that these are very NFT specific. And one of them is the metadata. So for those who don't know, the metadata is how marketplaces avail your NFT. Your attributes, so it will say you've got 3D glasses, and it's how things like rarity is determined and how your NFT is displayed to you as a user. So when you're building an NFT, you need to make sure that your NFT metadata adheres to a certain standard. And I think everyone uses OpenSea, including every project on Stacks. I think we actually have a SIP live for our own.
Yeah, it's SIP 16. It basically specifies the OpenSea metadata format with some small changes. But as long as you adhere to something similar to that, we'll support it.
Yeah, so there's only really a few things that define what a token looks like from a metadata perspective. The name, and usually what collections tend to do is, this is the collection name with the ID of the NFT. I think nearly every project on Stacks does the same thing as well, including Megapont. So here we're creating the Boozy Unleashed collection, and that would be the name of every token. We have an image link. Now, what we're using here is, we're using IPFS, which is decentralized storage for assets, and almost every NFT project uses them, although on Stacks some people use Gaia and other things. The reason that we use IPFS is it's decentralized. I would say it's harder for a creator to rug you, but realistically speaking, almost every contract deployed has the ability to change this. One for safety, i.e., hey, we've just broken all of the NFTs. We need to fix these. But what it does mean, unless there's a freeze in the contract, it means that I can now, as a creator, change them whenever I want. That applies to Megapont as well. We could actually change the Megapont NFTs if we wanted to until we freeze it. So we have to make sure that we're taking care of the metadata. And I really want to highlight these lines here. Because, as surprising as this may be to some people, there are 5 lines of code producing the actual image. And that can show you how simple it can be as an artist or a creator to really build your own NFT. And you could copy paste this and it will work. And all it's doing is it's placing the images on top of one another in the order that we define in the code above, which is just here. So we're going to iterate over the traits, and we're going to say for every trait that we have on the Boozy that we've built, we're going to just apply the image sequentially. So there's nothing really fancy going on there. And then what we've got going on here as well is this is where we actually build the Boozy. So we're going to iterate over the traits, and we're just randomly going through the directory, the files within that directory, and saying, just pick one. We don't care which one, just pick one, but we need one of each. So those 50 lines of code are everything that you need to produce an NFT. We can deep dive into some of it when we move on to the contracts. And then in this structure, there are a few things for just convenient scripts, like to actually create the NFTs. And then this function here called update metadata. Now this is a really dirty script that isn't very nice. So why does this exist? Because when creating an NFT, you need to ideally upload the image somewhere and then put the pointer to that image in the metadata. And a lot of creators who come to me asking for help have kind of made a mistake here. They're like, hey, we've produced all of the images, but now we've got the metadata and we need to go back and put the image link in the metadata. But they don't have a way to do that. And a lot of the times with some of the tools that you'll see online, including this bit of code here, it's very hard to regenerate the NFT again. A good example of where this might be useful is something like a Megapont. We have the Christmas hats, or we have the Super Bowl helmets. So if you can't regenerate your NFTs, it's really difficult for you to change the image URI. So this is just a little wrapper to replace the change fee to the actual the valid format when you upload it to IPFS. So when you run that code, it will produce a whole bunch of NFTs. Now I'm not going to spoil it and ruin what they look like, because I think I'll let Jamil talk now a little bit about the contract, and then everyone in the audience, I think, will still probably be able to mint this NFT. There are 100 of these Boozy Unleashed. And I think Jamil is going to walk through the contract and then share the link with everyone so we can all mint a Boozy.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so now that the hard part is done, generating the art, getting the art from the artist, and generating the metadata, now it's time to actually figure out how to deploy this to mainnet. So one of the things we're going to look at first is what actually makes up an NFT. What is an NFT contract, and what defines what an NFT contract actually is? At the core of it, it's actually really simple. It's not that complicated. There are only 4 functions that you need to implement to deploy an NFT contract. And this is defined by the NFT trait over here. these 4 functions are what defines what the NFT standard is on Stacks, right? So you need a way to, for example, say, what's the last token minted in this collection? Get last token ID. What is the token URI? Or where is the metadata link? So this is exactly what Mark just generated. That was the metadata. That was the data that was on IPFS. And when you call this function, get token URI, that's what we on the marketplace, for example, call to pull what the name is, what the image is from that NFT. Then there's get owner, who actually owns this single token in the NFT. And of course, finally, the transfer function, which says this is how an NFT is transferred from one user to another. At its core, an NFT is really just these 4 functions. You can almost think of it as a ledger, right, of a token ID 1, right, that maps to an owner and that maps to a metadata. So you can see get owner, get token URI, right? That at its core is all an NFT is. So for this, Mark had sent me the IPFS route this morning and is like, let's get the contract up.
Yep.
So what's great about this is you don't generally need to implement these functions yourself. You know, people around the ecosystem have deployed NFT contracts. Megapont has deployed NFT contracts. And you can generally look at how people have implemented these in the past and honestly just copy and paste. I think in other ecosystems, it's, especially in the Web 2 world, it's looked down to copy or to create derivatives of code or of work. But honestly, some of the best projects have done so. A lot of people use Megapont's contract as a template for what they do. A lot of people use the STXNFT minting contracts and the STXNFT NFT contracts as templates. These are well-tested, battle-tested, pieces of code. So that's exactly what we did here. We use the STXNFT, standard minting contract or standard NFT contract, which implements the NFT trait. So what this means is that this is telling readers of this contract, or just saying that we're implementing this trait. We're conforming to those 4 functions that I showed you earlier. And so there's a lot of other stuff here, errors, saying, okay, only the deployer can change the metadata, only the deployer can freeze the metadata, things like that. And of course, the IPFS root of the information here. And if we search IPFS root here, we can see that in the get token URI, we're basically concatenating the IPFS root with this ID string and saying, when you call get token URI, you're getting a link to the metadata that Mark was generating earlier. So let's take a look at what that metadata actually looks like. Here's the IPFS root. Let's just open up. This is a gateway. If that works. Yep. So this is what the metadata looks like, right? We have the name, we have a link to the image, we have the attributes. This is exactly what Mark was walking through generating in the previous step. And now it's linked to from a contract that's deployed onto Stacks. Right? So now when it comes to actually minting NFTs from this contract, and actually let me go back to that and I'll show you the image too, so you know what that looks like. So if we copy this and take a look there, that's what was uploaded. You can see the first ID 1 in this collection. That's what the image looks like. And we just pulled that straight out of the contract, going through the metadata and getting the image. And you can see the beautiful artwork here. And so when a marketplace like ours sees this NFT in a profile, what we're doing is we're pulling that metadata, pulling that image, and then displaying it in your profile. So this contract is live. It's been deployed to mainnet. It's confirmed in an anchor block. So any of you can now go up and actually mint this NFT. We don't have a UI up for it if they don't mint out, which I imagine that won't be the case. We might do that. But what you can do is you can copy and paste this URL, go to the sandbox, sign in here, and you'll be able to mint this NFT straight from the Stacks Explorer. I'm sure people have already done so who are watching this live. And the link that you can use to do that is tinyurl.com/boozyunleashed. So I think that redirects to the Explorer link. Yeah. So I'll type that in here if you're watching at home, or if you are on your laptop over here.
We might be able to, we've got some time left. We might be able to show people how to mint that.
Oh, for sure.
What I will do is unplug this so everyone can't see me enter my passwords to use my wallet though, because that is not what we want to be doing. So what I'm really doing here is just making sure I can actually have a go at minting it. Because
your whole Discord on stream right now.
But yeah, I would say for both on the art side and on the NFT contract side, it's really not like, there's a lot of prior work that's been done by people like Mark, by us at STXNFT to make sure that this process is easy for you. Like, you can copy the contracts, you can deploy them in minutes, and just get your work out there. A lot of people are intimidated by the amount of work that it takes to do both the generative aspect and the smart contract aspect, but there's been so much work that's been done in the past to make it really easy for you to do that. We, of course, also to slightly shill, we of course have our portal as well, where you can deploy collections by just dragging and dropping the images, and we'll generate the smart contract for you. But it's not that much work as well to do it by yourself if you don't want to use an off-the-shelf solution like ours. But there is that option as well. We can just drag and drop the images, drag and drop the metadata, and we'll generate the contract for you in a templated way. I think Mark is almost...
What's the URL, the contract?
Here.
You want to put it? Yeah, if you put it in there. We're about to show everyone how to mint directly from a contract.
This is actually really useful information to know, and probably not,
It's not useful.
It's not, all right.
Cool.
Can I plug it in now?
Yes, you can.
I want to show the first step also where you enter the
Okay.
contract name, so.
Let's do that, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a different contract. Oh, you want to show that step?
I'm just going to paste it, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so this is the Stacks Explorer sandbox. This is where you actually interact with the blockchain directly. So a lot of applications have buttons or different ways, like when you click a mint button, we might display some interesting UI. But in the end, it's really just interacting with the blockchain that matters. So what we're going to do is we're going to interact with the Boozy Unleashed contract over here. So if you go to that tiny URL link that I sent before, you'll be able to see the contract ID, and you can copy and paste that in the sandbox. And now here are all the functions that you can actually see that we implemented on the NFT contract itself. Mark mentioned like the ability to freeze metadata, for example, or set the metadata URI if you notice some mistakes or some changes that you want to make. Or for the admin to be able to pause the NFT contract, pause minting if something goes wrong. But the one that we're interested in today is this claim function. That's usually the biggest public function that most people interact with. This allows you to actually mint the NFT. So this claim function is what will handle, if it's a paid NFT, for example, the payment and all of that stuff. But in this case, it's a free NFT. It's just limited to 1 per wallet address. So we can call that right here. And it's as simple as pressing confirm.
Might as well confirm. Make sure you don't drain my 58 stacks.
I can't believe I'm pressing confirm.
Put the fee on high. Whoa.
I'll put a 1,000 stacks fee on there.
If I don't get one, I guess I miss out, right? Never mind. Thanks, Jamil.
And then you'll.
He already minted one, so he's fine. He's like, I minted the first one. So,
all right.
I think that's pretty much everything. We've glossed over a hell of a lot there in terms of minting an NFT. Like I said, the code is on GitHub. If you've got a really basic collection, that will kind of all work. I expect 100 messages now in Discord of, hey, how do I install Python? How do I install these dependencies? It's pretty simple and straightforward. As soon as you kind of get down in the trenches and have a play with this and run through the process of generating some NFTs and see what kind of output you get, you kind of start to develop this intuitive, hey, the glasses are clipping on this head trait here. I need to create some rules. And before long, you're writing Python, some simple if statements where if I'm using this specific trait, I don't want to be using these set of glasses. We're all working on tools to make this easier as creators. So we're working on tools to make the generative art process easy, where you don't have to use the code. Jamil obviously is working on the smart contract, where you don't have to worry about the smart contracts. But I think as a creator, just at least doing this once and minting some trivial collection on mainnet is something that everyone should do if they're thinking of building in the space. It doesn't take too long, and it's quite exciting. There's nothing like seeing your own code actually on the blockchain.
I would do it like, if anybody's watching this or listening to this, do it tonight, do it today. Just copy and paste one of the smart contracts that's out there. And even if you don't have metadata, even if you don't have something there, it's a really great experience to just have something, launch the contract, see how the process works. You get more familiar with some of the quirks of the blockchain, how things work. And, I think my goal, at least, and I think Mark mentioned some similar sentiments, we want to get engineers sort of out of the picture in the creation process, at least from our end as well. We want to make the process as simple and as easy as possible, but it is useful to know what underlies it when you're using the STXNFT Create portal or you're deploying a templated contract, what's actually going on behind the scenes and what steps it takes to get there.
Mm-hmm. And the Megapont contracts, obviously Jamil referenced these, are there on GitHub as well, on github.com/Megapont, I believe. And they're quite useful in that I think it was the first contract we deployed on mainnet that had the marketplace functionality baked into it. But also, as a team, it was our first contract on Stacks that we deployed and was obviously going to handle a decent amount of money. So we paid developers in the Stacks ecosystem to review the contract for us to make sure that we had no gaping holes in there. And obviously, it's been used by multiple projects now, so it's a good starting point to just clone it down, remove some of the stuff that's just unnecessary and a bit too heavy. I think that's pretty much everything. We can maybe open for questions if anyone wants to ask.
Yeah, I could walk through the code, but I think it's probably best to, that would probably not be the best use of the time.
And don't moan when you say the code's got no tests and it doesn't work. It was coded up this morning, so it's not the most optimal. So yeah, does anyone have any questions or anything that they want to ask? No? Well, we can give some time back.
All right, thank you all so much.